He spent 21 years on active duty, serving from January 1982 and retired in September of 2003. During his 21 years of service, he served stateside at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, Fort Drum, New York, Fort Ord, California, Fort Carlson, Colorado, Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and he was assigned at the University of Alabama at Birmingham. His overseas assignment included Camp Stanley, twice, in Korea, and Larson Barracks in Germany. In addition, he was tasked with a combat assignment with the 101st Airborne Division in Iraq. During his years in the Army, our guest speaker held every artillery assignment from cannoneer through battalion sergeant major. He was also tasked with the assignment as drill sergeant and an ROTC instructor. His military training included professional leadership development, airborne school, air assault school, and drill sergeant schooling. His military awards: Legion of Merit Medal, Bronze Star, Meritorious Service Medal, 7 awards, Army Commendation Medal, 5 awards, and the Army Achievement Medal, 13 awards. Our guest speaker resides in South New Berlin with his wife, Kathy. They have one son named, get this, Gunnar, that's what he told me, who has recently graduated from SUNY Brockport and commissioned in the U.S. Army as the second lieutenant of the military police branch. Let's have a warm welcome for Sergeant Major John Sheldon, United States Army retired. John.
Good morning, fellow Americans. I am humbled to be the guest speaker for this fine community. As mentioned, my name is John Sheldon. I am a retired Sergeant Major with 22 years of active duty service. I have been deployed all over the world. Many of the places I have been to, you have seen on the 6 o'clock news. As I was traveling down the mountain this morning, I couldn't help but notice all the American flags that were flying. What a beautiful sight. Our flag has so much meaning. So many have died to preserve this meaning. Our American flag has such a long and distinguished history. Our American flag represents the dreams we all have. Our American flag represents the country's accomplishments. These accomplishments are expressed in the colors of red, white, and blue. Our American flag has been carried in every American battle since the Revolutionary War. Our American flag is a symbol of all that is good about this great country. And our American flag represents an American idea. This American idea, many of our ancestors have fought bravely and died for. Today is Memorial Day. What is Memorial Day? Well, Memorial Day is a day we put aside to remember our many fallen heroes and veterans. Memorial Day is a day of thanks for the valor of others. Memorial Day is a day to remember the splendor of America and those of her children who rest in our cemeteries. Memorial Day is a day to be with family and friends. And last, Memorial Day is a day when all Americans, regardless of ideologies, race, creed, or political persuasion, join together to remember the sacrifices of those who answered our nation's call. As I was watching the national news channel the other day, the news anchor was asking people questions as they walked by on the streets of New York City. This news anchor was asking what they thought the meaning of Memorial Day was. I was shocked by some of the answers that were given. A young man said he knew it was a day that their local shoe store had buy one pair, get the other at 50% off. A young lady mentioned she just knew it was a free paid holiday at work. The news anchor went on to ask what they thought the cost of protecting Americans' freedom was. And would they help if asked? That same individual who made the sneaker comment said that if he was asked to protect our country's freedom, he would bolt north across the border to Canada. He said that protecting our nation's freedom was not in his plans. Not in his plans. I wonder what the plans of the 29,000 young men that lie dying on the beaches of Normandy had. Not in his plans. I wonder what the plans of the 47,000 young men fighting in Vietnam had that were dashed as they lie dying in that damp jungle far from home. Not in his plans. How about the 6,500 young men and women who had their plans changed by roadside bombs in Iraq and Afghanistan? Not in his plans. I wonder if the 3,000 people that were killed in the World Trade Center on 9/11 had any plans. Do you think Private Gary Lee Russell had plans? Private Russell was a young infantryman from the town of New Berlin. Some of you probably remember Private Russell. Private Russell was killed at the age of 19. Private Russell was killed by small arms fire while patrolling through the dense jungle of Vietnam. Russell was assigned as an infantryman in the 9th Infantry Division. He had only been in Vietnam for 90 days. I'll bet Russell had plans. Thank you, Private Russell, for your sacrifice. You are our hero. Speaking of other heroes, did you know that there was a Medal of Honor winner from Binghamton, New York? His name is Sergeant Lawrence D. Peters. Sergeant Peters was a Marine assigned to the 1st Marine Division. His assignment was in the Republic of Vietnam. Sergeant Peters was serving as a squad leader whose squad was attacked by intense fire from mortar, machine gun, and small arms. Sergeant Peters' squad was pinned down. Sergeant Peters quickly realized the severity of their situation. If they did nothing, they would all be killed. Peters reacted, and while exposing himself to direct fire, Peters led and directed his squad to the enemy. By doing this, Peters' squad once again gained fire superiority. During this necessary surge, Sergeant Peters was shot numerous times. These wounds were to his neck, arms, and legs. Clearly, Peters had no regard for his own personal safety. His selfless acts were committed because of his care for his fellow Marines. After saving the lives of the majority of his squad, Peters died on the battlefield. Do you ever wonder what motivates people to do things like this? People like Russell, people like Peters, they couldn't have possibly known that they'd be called for to leave this world for another. Yet these two were still willing to take that chance to preserve the freedom that we have all grown to love so dearly. Why is it that some people join the military with a willingness to sacrifice their all in the defense of this great nation? These courageous men were so different in heritage and background, yet they shared a common bond of duty and sacrifice. These brave men had reached a moment in their life where race, religion, creed, and color, they made no difference. What do you think makes a person risk their life for people that they have never met? So many brave heroes lie in our cemeteries today because of the sacrifices that they have made for you and me. If a fallen soldier could speak to us, what do you think they'd say? Do you think they would console us? If so, perhaps they'd say they'd give their life again for the defense of this great nation's freedom. Perhaps they'd say they would repeat their sacrifice because they believed it was their sense of duty. What is this thing? This sense of duty thing? What tugs at a person until he or she says, "Send me"? Whatever it is, all of these heroes felt some tug. They answered a call. They said, "I'll go." That is why these heroes are what America is made of. We need to be thankful for the people who allow us to sleep comfortably at night. We need to be thankful for the people who have made sacrifices to protect those who are not strong enough to protect themselves. The world is a changing place. Look at North Korea. They have an unpredictable tyrant in charge. North Korea is dedicated to developing long-range nuclear missiles capable of reaching the United States. They openly brag about it. That is scary. The world is changing. Look at Russia. They have had several recent airspace violations with some of our military vessels and aircraft. Although these may seem harmless, I can assure you they are not. Russian President Vladimir Putin does everything with a purpose. This purpose cannot be good. Putin is the first Russian president to expand Russian territory since Stalin. That is very scary. The world is changing. We have a new enemy we're at war with now. This might be our most dangerous enemy ever. These enemies are called terrorists. These evil terrorists are called ISIS. These terrorists recruit people through the internet using social media. These terrorists are cowardly, evil animals that hide in the dark and dare not show their faces. These evil terrorists fear what America has: freedom. These terrorists fear that if their committed followers ever became liberated into a free society, their dictatorship would cease to exist. And so would their power. ISIS is responsible for many terrorist attacks around the world. In the last 2 years, it is thought they have killed somewhere in the neighborhood of 20,000 people. You can believe that ISIS is trying to figure out how they can duplicate some of these attacks on our soil. Did you know in the last 18 months that they have arrested 17 people in New York State alone for involvement with ISIS? One of those 17 followers recently arrested was found living in Utica. I said Utica. That is 45 miles up that direction. Now, my wife might tell you differently, but I am not a profiler. If I see someone or something that doesn't look right, I'm gonna report it, and I hope you do the same. Terrorists mean to do harm to us and our children. That leads me to this question. Why do you think terrorists hate Americans so much? I think that these evil monsters have a hard time understanding how our country can be so self-indulgent and diverse, yet if we are attacked, we are so united in the defense of our principles. These evil terrorists need to realize that the answer is as simple and yet as complex as the soul of America itself. Americans fight because we believe in what our country stands for. Our enemies might not fully understand our society and our strong beliefs, but they should understand this. If and when America gets attacked, Americans will react quickly to bring the support to those that are injured. Americans will bandage their wounded. Americans will pause shortly to respectfully bury their dead. And then we will scour the earth and hunt these animals down for extermination. America does not do this because war is a good thing. America does this because war is sometimes a necessary thing. Americans fight and die not for the glory of war. Americans fight and die for the prize of freedom. Many of you sitting in the crowd today have served this great nation in some capacity. On behalf of a grateful nation, we thank you. You are the reason that our nation is so great. As mentioned earlier, I have spent 22 years in the active duty military. I have spent a lot of my adult life being deployed all over the world. These deployments included combat in Iraq. There were a couple of things that I always carried with me on all deployments. One was a very small worn Bible given to me by my grandmother, Marion Sheldon. I would always read Psalms 23, verse 4. This verse always gave me the strength that I needed to survive. This verse reads, "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil. For you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me." The other item I carried was a crumpled piece of paper with a quote that I would read as I was looking up at the stars at night. This would remind me of what I was fighting for. That piece of paper read, "War is an ugly thing, but it's not the ugliest of things. A person's decayed and degraded state of morale and patriotic feeling, which thinks that nothing worth a war is by far much worse. A person who has nothing for which he or she is willing to fight for, a person who has nothing more important than their own personal safety, is a miserable creature. This creature has no chance of being free unless made and kept so by the exertion of better men than women than themselves. In closing, I would like to read a poem by Stephen Washam. It's titled, A Soldier's Way. When my son was small, he and his friends loved to play Marines. A brown-eyed soldier dressed up in his helmet and his jeans. I asked him why he always died whenever they would play. He just said, I save my friends, because that's the soldier's way. As he grew up, his mom and I have always wondered what he'd be. When he reached high school, he enrolled in the ROTC. Once he had finished high school, he enlisted without delay. I should have known it all along, because that's the soldier's way. When he had finished training and became a full Marine, I was the proudest father that anyone had ever seen. A brown-eyed soldier in full dress, not a thread in disarray, stood proudly there before me, because that's a soldier's way. He eventually got married to a beautiful young wife, and I asked if she was ready for a military life. She just smiled and hugged me tight as she fondly did convey that nothing could make her prouder, because that's a soldier's way. One day he told us he must leave for a war had broken out. He wasn't sure what started it or what it was about. His mother asked if there was any way that he could stay. He told her, Mom, it's my duty, because that's a soldier's way. She said, Son, it's very dangerous. You could be killed, you know. He said, Mom, if we all stayed home, there'd be no one left to go. Dad, he said, if this war is right, it's not for me to say, but I have to follow orders, because that's a soldier's way. Just recently, his wife received a visit and a letter. Our son had died in combat, and there was not a better leader in all their company, and on that fateful day, he bravely saved all of his friends, because that's the soldier's way. He left behind a sweet young wife and a beautiful little son. We are all very proud of him and everything he's done. My son did his duty, and he is coming home today in a flag-draped wooden coffin, because that's the soldier's way. Some have asked if I'm angry that my only son had to die. I simply smile and shake my head, and here is my reply. My friends, take a look at all you have around here this day. You have all these lovely things, because that's the soldier's way. My grandson looks just like his dad in his helmet and his jeans as he plays out with his buddies pretending they're Marines. And when he falls and pretends to die, then I know right away that he has just saved all of his friends, because that's the soldier's way. Please keep our military members, our fallen heroes, and our veterans in your prayers as you go through your daily lives. God bless our sailors, soldiers, airmen, and Marines stationed throughout the world, and God bless the United States of America. Keep your rifle clean and your powder dry.